Vikings fans, what's up? It's Wabi and voice of the Vikings, Paul Allen, inside TCO Performance Center, where a few days from now, the Vikings are going to execute the 2019 NFL Draft. I'm going to be there watching it. You're going to be at home watching it. Paul's going to be at US Bank Stadium analyzing it. We've been talking about it for months. We all have our opinions, but you host 9 to noon every day on 100.3 FM The Fan. What do people want? What are guests that you have on your show saying the Vikings should do? What's the consensus?
Well, this week is the Belly of the Beast, and it's a lot of fun, specifically doing a sports-intensive radio show that has a major Vikings feel to it year-round. So a lot of opinions have been formulated, Mike, and, you know, when it comes to either the guests or the listeners to 9 to noon, the majority of them have focused on offensive line for the Minnesota Vikings at 18. The name that I hear most from the listeners, not necessarily the analysts, would be Alabama tackle / maybe guard Jonah Williams. You hear that name a lot. We hear the names Garrett Bradbury, Cody Ford, Chris Lindstrom. We hear a lot, but you know, the majority of the people that we have on as experts or from a listener standpoint, offensive line seems to be most en vogue.
So here's the good news about that then, is it's not like this is a class, because this does happen. Like 2 years ago, I believe, or 2 or 3 years ago, no offensive linemen were taken in the top 17. Okay? But this is not one of those years. This is a pretty good offensive line class. So that's the good news. If the Vikings do want to address that position in the top 50, 65 picks.
Agreed.
There are some names among which they can choose.
Yeah, and you know, from what I understand at this stage of the equation, the Florida tackle, Jawaan Taylor, you know, if you need a right tackle, the consensus seems to be, where I really believe this, that he is the best of the bunch. So I haven't really put a lot of 9 to noon time into him because, quite honestly, I like our right tackle, Brian O'Neill, a lot. I really have no interest, personally speaking, in moving him. So I haven't really put a lot of time into that. If you need an interior player who can have flexibility from guard and or center, this is your year.
Yeah.
And this is your year up and down the draft. You know, with Pat Elflein at center, Josh Klein here via free agency. They re-signed Brett Jones. You know, it's not like they're void of people. But when it comes to focusing on that, you know, I think that definitely would be wise.
Now, I think offensive line, you think in this class, you think depth. You think depth throughout the first few rounds. Some other positions, though, I think is top heavy with the elite talent. Defensive line and tight ends.
Big time.
And I'm sure you've heard a lot about those two positions on your show.
Absolutely agree with both. And from a defensive end standpoint, it's not necessarily if you just need the Aaron Donald type to play the 3 technique, that defensive tackle, where somebody like Quinnen Williams from Alabama, maybe Ed Oliver from Houston. Whoever gets one of those two guys probably is going to get a game changer.
Yeah.
But it's up and down the draft with players off the edge.
Yeah.
You know, this Clemson defensive line, we heard so much about it during the college football season. I think 3 members of that line will be drafted in the first round.
Wow.
Well, there are more members of that line who contributed, so that could go deep too. The NCAA's all-time sacks leader, Jalen Ferguson from Louisiana Tech, kind of an obscure name like Marcus Davenport from Texas San Antonio was last year. Not many people had focused on UTSA. And then Peyton trades a lot to get Davenport. So from a defensive line standpoint, super deep. From TJ Hawkinson through, 6, 7, 8 tight ends, there are some really good tight ends in this draft. There are some who are catch specific, who aren't really that interested in inline blocking or pass protection. But there are some extremely versatile ones too who can do it all.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, Thursday night's going to be a lot of fun. You have the Cardinals at 1, and people are wondering if they're going to trade Josh Rosen, if they're going to take Kyler Murray. You have the Raiders with 3 first-round picks. The Packers have 2. The Giants have 2.
Yeah.
The Giants are going to pick twice before the Vikings pick 1. So lots of interesting storylines there. When you get deeper into the draft, what's one thing you want the Vikings to get out of it that people aren't talking about that goes into the middle or late rounds? I'll go first. I'll give an example.
Yeah.
And hopefully I don't steal your thunder.
Yeah.
How about a returner of
Yeah.
some kind? A guy who can compete with the Mike Hughes of the world
Yep.
and maybe spell Mike Hughes as a returner or
Love
maybe
it.
have the job. Are there any other roster spots like that maybe you're looking for the team to address?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit on a big one. And I'm not super comfortable sharing names that I love on like Saturday at the draft, but there are some wide receiver punt returners who are incredibly intriguing to me. That would be one. Even though this team has built itself very nicely with Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes, Mike Hughes in the first round,
Yep.
Mackenzie Alexander, fantastic season last year in the second round. With some potential scenarios with Trey down the road, Rhodes at this stage of his career, Hughes off an ACL, Mackenzie being slot specific, there could be a need for a corner somewhere a little earlier than people think.
Yeah.
Another one that I think is intriguing is I wouldn't mind seeing them take a quarterback on Saturday. And that's simply because Sean Mannion's new and Kyle Sloter has yet to play in a regular season game. So I'm not sure they can't do it, but the past performances would indicate that they may need some pressure put on them to bring the best out of them. So I think that's a sneaky one too.
And the very last thing that we'll mention before we go, and working with Rick as long as both of us have, we know trading back is a possibility.
Yeah.
When you're sitting there at 18.
He only has 8 picks now. He likes 10.
And he wants more than that, right?
Yeah.
So a trade back at 18 is a possibility in this thing, right?
Oh, I think so. I absolutely think it is. Now, certainly in no way speaking for the team, but if you're able to go from 18 somewhere into the 20s and get whatever player you want while amassing a mid-round pick, I think that's an absolute coup de grace. This looks to be a draft to me where a lot of teams want to go back and amass picks. So, it may be easier said than done.
All right, Vikings.com/draft party. If you want to go to US Bank Stadium, $20 general admission tickets still available. You can listen to him talk about the draft as it's happening. You should do that. Whether you do or do not do that, you should also download the Vikings app. Lots of news and content from us delivered straight to your favorite mobile device. On behalf of Voice of the Vikings, Paul Allen, this is Wabi signing off for now. See ya.